I started to invite God to my pain. I started to invite Him to my misery, to the broken parts of me. And He came and He started healing me. Hi guys, my name is Asemahle Gongxeka. This is Testimony Tuesday with Until All Are Found, and this is my testimony. Okay, so I come from a two-parent home household, and I have two sisters and a brother. I grew up with, you could say, both my parents. I lost my dad, my biological dad, in 2009, and it sort of crushed me a lot. But in that moment, I didn't realize what the death of my dad meant to me. And for some reason, I struggled to see my dad, like as in my stepdad, as my dad. It was hard for me to see it, you know? And no matter how much I tried, it was as if I was very angry at God. Because there was just something in my heart that felt like, why? And then, cool, I went to varsity, and I was basically just growing up in a home where we would go to church on Sundays and never really understood what was the need of going to church or why I had to go to church. I just did it because my parents wanted me to do it. I never had a desire to know God, never understood what He or who He is. I knew about Him, but I didn't know Him. And then a time came where I went to varsity, and I started drinking, right? I started drinking. I tried drinking, actually, and I was like, okay, it's not that bad. And I made friends. It was very hard for me to make friends before before varsity. But as time went by, I made friends. Well, my mom made friends for me, bless her. And I made these beautiful friends, these beautiful human beings who were the total opposite of me, but I think they brought out a sense of belonging to me. It felt like I belonged. It felt like these are my people. It felt like, oh my gosh, like life is good, you know? And I then started drinking, and then this one time after my birthday, it was my birthday party, and obviously, like, people were there, and my groceries basically got finished. So the following day, or like 2 days later, when I was sober, I went to go, and I was studying at the UFS, right? So I went to go get groceries, and at UFS there's something called a cab. So you call this guy or this cab, and you tell him to come pick you up at your address. And at that time, I needed to withdraw money, so I went to Spa, and there were just a couple of cabs there. And this guy was like, oh, do you need a cab? And I was like, yeah. And that was a normal thing. It was a normal interaction for me. So, before that, I had like this specific driver, but on that day, he wasn't available, and he wasn't even in the province. And so I had to that's what actually led me to go to Spa and get money so that I could get a cab, because I would normally just transfer him the amount. And I then left with this guy, and this man was driving me, and I could see that, like, okay, we're not going in the direction that I'm used to. So I asked him, Wuti, where are we going? And then he's like, oh, no, sis, we're just going to pick up another client. And that was also normal. But normally they would ask if you can do that. And I was like, okay, why didn't you ask? And then he was like, oh, no, he's sorry. And then he just started driving really fast. And yeah, we drove. And the more we drove, I realized that we're not going where I think we're going. And I asked him to stop, and then he didn't stop. And he stopped at a place that looked like a field. And for me, it was very scary. It was very scary. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Now I try to open the door, and it's on child lock. So now I can't get out. and he goes to the boot, and then I'm like, can you please open the door? And then he comes back in and he closes the door and he gets in the other side. So I'm like, okay, what are you doing? And he tries to touch me, right? And he touches me. And I'm just like, don't do that. And we basically fight until I don't have the strength to fight him. And then, he assaulted me, right? He sexually assaulted me. And after he did that, he allowed me to leave. And I remember just crying. And he drove off, and I was just broken. And I was like, what just happened? And it crushed me, and that really made me even doubt the presence of God. I was like, why would he allow that to happen, you know? I remember just being in the street, not knowing where I am or how to now get home, because I don't trust anyone at this point. Like, if I stop another guy, what if that happens? Like, and then there was this white couple who stopped and they asked me why I was crying, because I was just in the middle of the street. I was trying to locate someone. And yeah, I got in their car, and the lady really reassured me, and she was like, don't worry, like, we'll take you home. And they took me home, and they took me to my place, and I cried so much. And the following morning, I called my granny, and I was just crying on the phone, and I was just trying to tell her that they hurt me. And she immediately knew what had happened. Like, I didn't need to say anything. She kind of knew from the utterances of my mouth what I was trying to say. And she immediately just said, okay, just hold on. And she hung up the phone, and she called my mom. And my mom called me, and they arranged for me to come back home. And I was really broken. And I remember going home and my mom asking me what happened. And I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about this once, and we're never going to talk about this again. And yeah, we spoke about it. I told them, and I said, this is the first and the last conversation we're having. We went to hospital, I got tested, and, I was put on these ARVs for 30 days. And I was told that I'm not pregnant. And the doctor told me that I think we had 2 months for me to report it. And I was like, we're not going to report this, okay? Like, we're not going to report this. And I remember it was in that moment where my entire desire for pursuing law was basically shattered. I was like, there's no point to this. Like, there's no point to this. And I then became someone that I couldn't recognize. I remember just going home, and my mom would get a therapist for us, for me to just speak about it, because she realized that I didn't want to speak about it. And when the lady would come, I would roll my eyes, and I would tell her that we don't need to speak about this. Like, I don't want to speak. She tried so much that when the therapist just kept coming, I was like, okay, I'm going to leave. Like, I'm going to go to my place. I need to go to Bloom. And I left. And that's when I completely lost myself. I got into this dark hole of drinking and partying. Listen, I was basically like that girl, And we would party with my friends, and we would drink a lot. Like, I would drink a lot. I remember there was just times where I don't, like, when I'm sober, it feels weird. It feels weird. It feels like I shouldn't be. And, but even though I was really happy, there was no joy in my heart. There was something missing. There was something that I was really craving. And I remember even that desire to want to fit in, to want to have the friends. I mean, for me, it wasn't difficult to make friends because I needed somebody to make me whole. I needed somebody to make me feel good. I needed somebody to not allow me to think about what happened, and just like, let's just be happy all the time. I didn't want to be alone. If I'm alone, I remember my best friend lived with me, and every time she would leave, I would go away. Like, I would leave my room. Somebody had to come. And yeah, I then started really falling into this pit hole, and I was into this life of promiscuity. I would wear really short things, I was known by the club owner of a club. That was crazy for me, because that's not the person that my parents knew. That's not the person that my grandmom knew. That's not the person that my family knew. Only a selective amount of people in my family knew that, she goes to the parties and she goes to the clubs. So the very reason why I was just hiding it away from my parents, even despite the fact that they were strict, it was alarming to me. It was like, why am I hiding? I was basically living a double life. And I think this hole and this pain in my heart really affected my interaction with my parents. It affected my interaction with my friends. And I didn't think I was worthy enough to have genuine friendships, genuine intentional friendships, genuine intentional relationships. And I didn't think that it was possible for me and my parents to even have a relationship where I can talk to my mom about anything. So I found that in my friends. I found that in the community that I found outside of Christ. And until I had to just sit down on my own. And I remember I would call my friends at night when I'm having nightmares, or when I'm crying and I'm actually thinking about what happened, and they wouldn't know what to do. And I then would call my mom as well at like 2 a.m., my granny. I was a sad human being. Like, I was really sad. Those who were close to me knew that I would cry all the time. I was broken. I was really broken. And until there was a point where I was like to my mom, I think I want to go to the psychiatric. Like, there's too much noise in my head. Like, there's too much in my head. I wanted to take my life away. I just couldn't live. And that was different from the Mahle that people knew outside, like the one who went to the club, the one who was always happy and smiling. And I was like, no. And I remember this one Saturday, my friend and I went to the club, and on the next Sunday we went to church, because there was just something that the club was not filling in my heart. And we went to church, and I bawled my eyes out. Like, I was just crying. And this was 2023. And I remember just towards the year, I then started to pray to God, and I would journal, right? And I then was like to my mom, I want to start therapy. I want to help myself. There was this deep desire to help myself. And I went to God and I prayed to the Lord, and I was like, I don't know what to do with this pain. I don't know what to do with what I'm carrying in my heart. And to be honest, I'm angry, because I feel like you were not there. I feel like you didn't stop it. And it's done now, but I want you to help me. And I think that it was in that moment, in that prayer of honesty, where I found wholeness in God. It felt like He was holding my hand. And I remember I just would journal my feelings. And in my journal, on one of the stuff that I would, like the topics I would write, would be healing. And it would just be me telling God how I feel and what I need. And I was like to the Lord, I want you. I want all of you. I don't want you to go away. I don't want what I felt on that day to ever leave me. And not knowing that it was in that moment where He would start sanctifying me, not knowing that it was in that place of vulnerability where I was repenting. And I was like, I'm tired of this. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want this take away these desires, take away everything, like take away everything that's not you. And I think that was around December, and then 2024 January, I went to church. Like I was like, I'm going to church. The first Sunday, I'm going to church, and I went to House of Treasures Ministries, and that's when I rededicated my life to Christ. So I had been baptized, I had been saved, but I didn't realize what that meant. So now I'm at this church, and I'm like, wow, things are different here. Like I went to what they call the youth service as well, and it's called Alive Youth. Shout out to them, because they were like a passionate group of young people who genuinely like loved Jesus, like even how they worshiped him, how they sang. I was like, wait, what? I want that. I want that for myself. I want to know the Jesus that these people know, because these are not old people, okay? These are young adults, even young children who knew the Lord. And I went to the Lord and I was like, I want to know you like that. I want to desire you like that. I don't want Sundays to look like you're dragging me, like how it's been in the past. And I started to invite God to my pain. I started to invite him to my misery, to the broken parts of me. And he came and he started healing me. He removed the bandages. He taught me to forgive the person who hurt me. And he told me that I needed to forgive him. And not just by saying it, but I needed to forgive him. And I remember just battling with myself and asking the Lord why he would want me to forgive somebody who hurt me like that. Why he would desire for me to do that. Does he not know what it means and what that meant for me? So I struggled with forgiveness. I struggled with forgiving people that I felt like would hurt me. So if you hurt me once, you're out. And the Lord began to just remove those bandages, and it felt like blood was just flowing out. And I remember just saying to the Lord, I forgive him. I forgive him. And I had to say it to myself continuously that I forgive this man. I forgive him. And I'm setting him free, and I'm not going to be defined by that experience. I'm not going to allow that experience to define how I interact with human beings or how much I let people into my heart. And I remember just breaking up with my then boyfriend, and it crushed me because he was the one person that made everything feel whole. But because it wasn't from God and I knew that it was never going to work, that also crushed me. And I had to let go of a lot, I had to let go of my friends, not necessarily because like I'm better than them, but because I needed to align myself with him. And it was lonely. It was lonely having to realize that I'm doing this with you, Lord. And sometimes it doesn't feel like I'm doing it with you, because I can't go to the club anymore. I can't, grab a glass of wine or whatever. And I remember just starting so simply to stop drinking. It was a simple act where I would just say, okay, I don't want to drink anymore. And my friends would be like, okay, sure. And I think I appreciated that so much because they respected me. And I would create these boundaries with my friends where I would tell them not to invite me to the club anymore. I would tell them not to, like, I don't drink anymore. So if they're drinking, then yeah, it's not happening. And I remember this past year felt like it was an intense year of just having to find myself, having to sit with my pain, having to know who I am. And I remember just asking the Lord for community, people who would hold my heart and know that I am sensitive, okay? But I don't have to have my guard up in loving people. And that's when he would just allow me to sit in his presence. And I remember just going into one of my mentors, who's my pastor, Pastor KG, and another mentor of mine, Pastor Sia, and those two men really helped me get to know the Lord. And he gave me this one book called Good Morning, Holy Spirit. And I was like, okay, I have to read this. And I got to realize who the Holy Spirit was. And I had to realize that he is in me and he's with me, you know. And church then now started to not feel like a job. It started to feel like I want to do this. I desired to do this. And the more I extended myself and opened that door to the Lord, is the more I got to experience who he was in me and who I am. So I started to see that I actually don't like alcohol. I actually don't like fitting in. In fact, it's okay for me to be alone. I actually started to go on dates alone and read my Bible or read a book, go shopping. And it didn't feel like it was new anymore. It didn't feel like it was something that I had to struggle to do. And one of the most important things that my pastor taught me was to honor my parents. And I started to just honor my parents, realize that it doesn't matter how I feel. Like, if my mom is saying you can't go there, then you can't go there. You know, if my dad is saying that I need to do this, then that's exactly what I need to do without expressing when I want to do it, you know? And I think the Lord just started to mold my heart and make me realize that my parents were a gift from him. My dad was a gift from him. He was a second chance. He was another chance for me to see God again. And I started to ask the Lord to fix my heart and make me see my dad for who he was. Make me see him as a father. Make me respect my dad. And I remember it was hard for me to do that. It was hard for me to respect him. But I think God brings people into your life that will usher you into that. And my pastor would just tell me, like, you need to respect this man. And I started doing that. And the more I started praying over my heart and not over my parents' strictness, that's when I started seeing a relationship between my parents and I. That's when I started seeing an openness that actually these people actually love me. And that everything that my dad did was to protect me. And everything, even the parts that I don't understand, are to protect me. And that he has the best interest, and I just need to dig deep enough to see it. You know, I need to open up my heart enough to see it. And yeah, I think he's really changed how I interact with my parents and the relationship that I have with my parents, because I now can speak to my mom about anything. I mean, our parents have a lot of ups and downs, and they're humans too. So I have to learn that every day, that these people are doing life for the first time as well. So extend grace. Extend grace to them. Extend grace to yourself. And I remember we had to go on a trip with my friends. And I was like, I don't want to go on this trip anymore, because what if we drink? Like, what if these people force me to drink? And what if we do things we're not supposed to do? Like, how do I tell my friends that I don't want to do this anymore? I mean, they know that I don't want to do this anymore, but I don't want to be boring, you know? And my friend Sarah was like to me that I think we can trust that the work and the Holy Spirit in us is big enough. He's bigger than that sin. He's bigger than that temptation. So if you can lean on that. And she reminded me of even how we got here. And I remember just saying, okay, Lord, if they're going to force me to do this, then maybe we're just not meant to be together, you know? And I went to the trip, and we had a very beautiful time together, and our boundaries were clearly set. I mean, I think it was one of the first things that I had to speak about on the trip, because we were so used to taking shots, you know? So that was new. for us to, well, for me not to do. And my friends respected that. And I remember we prayed together. We actually went to church on the 31st together. And I can see God working in their life as well. And that was my biggest prayer, that Lord, you will work in their life. You will change them. You will turn them towards you the same way you did with me. And he did that with Sarah. And I believe he's doing that with my other friends as well. And I remember just going on this fast the first week of January this year. And when I was going through this fast, the Lord just gave me ideas to do. And I was like, okay, so you want me to feed the poor and the less fortunate? And he just gave me this idea of a picnic as well. And I would just jot down these ideas that are coming in my head through the fast. Sorry. And I would just jot down these ideas that would come in my head. These are coming as ideas. It's not like an epiphany or, a revelation, but it's just an idea to do these things. And I've always had a desire to help the less fortunate. So I was like, okay. Yeah, and then the Lord was like, you're going to break up with this guy that you're with because, yeah, he's not the one. And I was like, wow, that's hard, because this was a man that I really thought was a good person. He had the best intentions. And I knew what this man was going to do for my birthday. So I struggled with, letting that go. I struggled with accepting the fact that I'm not going to get that. Okay, like this is a bit too much. And I let it go. And on my birthday, I actually spent it giving to the less fortunate. And that was very beautiful for me, because had I stayed there in that relationship, I don't think I would have experienced the Lord in that manner, where we raised like 7,000 in a space of 6 days. And we got food parcels, and we could, what I thought would be feeding 20 people, fed almost 200 people. And it gave food parcels to 30 families, and it changed people's lives. People got to experience the heart of God through that. And I don't think I would have gotten that opportunity, or the Lord would have given me that opportunity, had I stayed holding on to that relationship. And as time went by, the whole idea of the picnic, which was first called Babes and Bible, I started realizing that that's not the name. And for as long as the Lord just has to speak to me, like, tell me what is this? Like, is this just a random picnic where we're just sitting together? And what are we doing? And as time went by, he was like, it should be called Planted in Purpose, according to Psalms 1:3, right? And I struggled with understanding what that meant. And he basically said that every place and everything, for as long as you wake up in the morning, you are planted in purpose. And the purpose brings fruit. And when you are planted in the right place, which is in him, you will bear those fruits. That means he will get to remove the worldly desires. He will get to remove the anger in your heart. You will bear the fruits of the Spirit, right? And he says that everything you do will prosper. In each time you do it, it will prosper in season. And I was like, okay. And I then started to realize that a lot of us function out of purpose because we don't know our purpose. I mean, a hand can never operate as an eye. And for as long as you are operating as an eye, you will never become what the hand is trying to do, For as long as you are not operating in the purpose that God has for you, you will never find peace. You will never find fruition. You will never find a sense of belonging. So I was like, okay. We started this group, and I remember just saying, okay, how are we going to do this? Because I don't have the finances to do this. And he was like, just trust me and know that I'm with you. And I then did the poster. I went to my spiritual father and I asked him to cover me. And he covered me in prayer. And my two friends, Kutano and Ompile, really helped me in just establishing that movement of purpose. And I remember we would fast and pray, and we would pray every Thursday. And we were just struggling because we thought the venue was botanical gardens, and we're just like, no. And then there was this one time we saw this beautiful place. Well, I saw this beautiful place after Botanical Garden had just changed their mind and had said that no, there's something happening there. And I knew that that was the Lord trying to pivot me into something and to just show me. And I remember the place that I saw was 10K. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Because even the tickets of this thing are not gonna, like, they're not gonna do it. We needed to buy food. We needed to, there was so much that we needed to do. So even the tickets were not helping. And I remember just telling the lady that, okay, my father's gonna pay for it. And it was such a weird place of just trusting God and realizing that he could help. And there was just a sense of knowing, but a sense of unbelief as well, because I was scared that God wasn't going to do it. And I remember on this one Thursday, it was like 7 days before Planted in Purpose. And the lady was like, in order to secure this place, you need to pay it 7 days before. And I was like, okay, we're going to pay it. It's all right. We're going to pay it. And we were just trusting God. And I remember there was just this one time where I was just like, okay, Lord, I think I trust you, but I don't trust you enough. Like, I know you're God and I know you're big, but are you big like that? Like big to get this out there? Because people already know about this. What am I going to do? I need you to show up for me. I need you to get this place paid. And we just had this one amount and we needed the rest of the amount. And we were just praying and I just had a sense of knowing. And the lady would just say, she just called me 4 days before that. And she was like, do you still want the place? And I was like, yeah, we do. My dad's just going to sort that out. And 2 days or a day before, I get this text that says, hey, I was going to sow a seed. I was going to sow a specific amount, but the Lord convicted me to sow this amount. And that was the amount we needed for the venue. And that is when I actually got to experience God as the God who sees. I got to experience him as Jehovah Jireh as well. And I was like, wow, like, you're big enough for me as well. You know, you're strong enough for me as well. And I remember just hearing the testimonies that Planted in Purpose brought to bear. I then realized that God is big enough for me. He is present enough for me. And he can help me in any situation. He can help me in my pain. Even in the seasons that feel like they're lonely, even in the seasons that feel like they are hurting, that I can invite him there and I can allow him to usher me through that. And I remember when even I got a car, I was like, wow, I even stopped praying about this. What do you mean? And I got the job that I had asked him for. And I was like, wow. All it took was for me to say, I need you and I want you. And I can open up that door with realizing that I didn't have to first give up drinking alcohol in order for me to experience your sanctification or your love and the depth that you have for me. And yeah, everything else just made sense after that. And I do believe that I'm still in the process of healing and understanding God. And that's my story.